just doing what Miami Dolphins. The pressure, he's in trouble. Loses the football. Touchdown! Got it! You have got to be kidding me. Jaelan it's a Dolphin touchdown. Throwing deep upfield on the near side, man open, touchdown! Looking deep, he's got it there! Touchdown! The run from Tua Tagovailoa. Touchdown! He's going deep! He's got it for a touchdown! Touchdown! Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
All right, huddle up, huddle up. We're going to crank these.
You're listening to Fin Too Deep.
Tua back to throw. Blitz coming. They get to him. No, he takes off running. And he's in. Touchdown, Miami.
With the sixth pick in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Jalen Waddle.
Giving you unfiltered, informed, and controversial takes on the Miami Dolphins and the NFL Draft. Here's Reason and Neal.
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we dive back in Fin Too Deep with myself and my co-host, as always, Neal Driscoll. Neal, we got a lot to talk about tonight, man. We're going to talk about Dalvin Cook and Byron Jones swap and what we're hearing on the Byron Jones trade market front for whatever does exist of it, which is going to shock people. We're going to give us some of our Senior Bowl standouts that, you know, some of you guys should keep an eye on. On top of that, as the show goes on, we might be able to find out, is Zach Thomas going to get into Canton tonight? And honestly, because everyone's already heard my thoughts on it, we're going to pick I want to pick Neal's brains a little bit on the Butch Barry hire. And also interesting stuff. I know you saw the clip from Raheem Mostert, what he said about McDaniel and Tua. So we'll play that for people. They can see what we're talking about. We'll talk about that. But beyond that, how you feeling, man? I know you're a little nervous about tonight and everything like that, but how you feeling, man?
Yeah,
Staff
I am,
coming
man.
together?
Yeah, no, I went to Canton when Marino got in, and I went when Jason Taylor got in, and those were two of the players that I watched in my extreme Dolphins fandom. And, you know, to see Zach Thomas get in would kind of, you know, check all those boxes of your kind of childhood Dolphins. I'm nervous about it because, as we know, the NFL, you know, it's very questionable, some of the things that come out of it, and they do. And you know, like a lot of the time you'll see some people get in and you're like, you know, how did that guy get in over Zach Thomas? You know, he deserves it. You know, there's other Dolphins. We were talking about Richard Webb deserving it before we got on the air here. There's Bob Kuechenberg for, you know, the older Dolphin fans in the 70s. You know, it's something that, you know, I just hope we hear that, you know, within this hour that Zach Thomas got his spot in Canton, because, man, I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things was I remember being a kid, getting the Sports Illustrated, reading about how his neck got ran over, you know, 5th round pick, you know, out of Texas Tech, gets the shout out from Jimmy Johnson in the Water Boy. I mean, it's just, you know, Zach Thomas is
bro. When he put on those cowboy colors, bro, I was like, it was like when Jason put on it was a little worse when Jason put on the Jets colors, but it's just some players just don't look right in other colors, and Zach Thomas and Jason Taylor were two of those guys, right?
Right. And so, you know, like, hopefully we get good news. Like, you know, you mentioned this before we got on. A lot of the pundits are out there picking Zach Thomas as one of the people to get in. So maybe they're hearing something. Maybe there's something. I mean, it's tight-lipped. You don't get any leaks. It happens live, and you figure it out. So
tell them the other part I said to you, though. I said, Zach's going to answer the door in his boxers eating a sandwich because he's not going to expect Canton to show up. Yeah. Flip-flops, boxers, and a sandwich. You're like, oh, let me get my robe. So hopefully.
There's some fun spots in Canton, Ohio, you know, and it would be fun to make that whole place aqua and orange with 54 jerseys everywhere and take it over, man. So wishing nothing but the best. But like you said, man, the cool
Can I
thing
ask
about
you
being
this? I've never talked about this publicly, but I want to ask you this because we're talking about Canton and you've been there, etc. Is there an eerie feeling to that place in the sense of people? You hear players talk about it, right? You hear coaches talk about it. There is a general belief amongst the brotherhood that you always live on there. You know what I mean? In sense of like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like they don't talk about it in the sense of like, you always they talk about it as if these guys after they pass away are playing cards and smoking cigars, and drinking beers like after hours, brother. You know what I mean? Like
I'll say something that's not probably a really popular take. I think the NFL Hall of Fame is kind of overrated, to be honest. When I went to it, I was expecting, and the first time I ever went was in 2005-ish. So that was the first time I ever been, and I was expecting this, and it's interesting and it's cool. You got some Dolphin history, but it was pretty quick, honestly, to go through it.
Really, eh?
Yeah, like honestly, I thought the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was 10 times better.
Bro, you know what you'd like? You know what you'd like? And if you come up here, I'll take you there. The Pro Hockey Hall of Fame is actually like it's really, really good, man. And like I've been going since I was a kid. Like it's interactive even for adults. Bro, you can go up and you can go call some of the biggest Caps goals of your life and you can record yourself calling the plays and stuff. Like it's very interactive. Like it takes a day to get through it, Wow, so that's what cool. That's why I'm surprised because I'm exactly like you. Like I haven't been to Canton, but that's what I was expecting. Like fully interactive. Like it's a whole day thing. And now you're telling me it's a quick walkthrough. It's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, well, yeah, I guess I'm not a very patient person, but I ended up just playing my younger brother in like Madden. They had like a Madden console set up. And I put the beat down on them in Madden. That's, you know what I mean? Like, but it's always cool. And as more and more, like, I thought it was really cool when Tua and Waddle's jerseys went in there from the Ravens game. And,
tell everyone the tweet you sent out. This is the best tweet of the year when he's talking about Lamar Jackson. But I think you said it on the show, but remind everyone, because I remember even people were replying to you like, yo, that's amazing.
Yeah,
tell them, bro. Lamar Jackson.
Last time Tua saw Lamar Jackson, his jersey ended up in the Hall of Fame.
Isn't it beautiful?
So, and
for all of y'all that want Lamar, remember that one.
But I'll tell you, man, there's never really a dull moment as a Dolphins fan. You're already starting to hear and chatter a little bit about, maybe Dalvin Cook, maybe Josh Jacobs. Are they going to make a splash for a big run?
Kamara's a little slight rumblings about, I did a show a couple days ago about Kamara. Right. Because that's even popping up in articles.
Yeah. Well, here's the reality, right? Like I'm not a big pay a running back guy, but in the Dolphins exact offense, like a Dalvin Cook, and Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, and Saquon Barkley, one of those guys can completely take your team to the next level. You know what I mean? Like our running game was horrid. Let's call it what it was. It was, it got better as the season got on. We obviously have issues with some of the positioning on the offensive line, but having one of those true bell cows. Now, like Barkley's injury history scares me. I'm just being honest. Dalvin scares me. I think the home run would be Alvin Kamara, but I do love Josh Jacobs because I do like his familiarity with the Alabama guys and Tua. And, like everyone so Josh Jacobs is probably going to get what?
I'm a huge Josh Jacobs guy. I remember when I broke into this community in 2019, massive Josh Jacobs guy. I think I picked, I was massive Josh Jacobs guy, bro. And I still am. And the fact of how he played last year with that chip on his shoulder when McDaniel wouldn't pay him.
Right.
You know what I mean? Give me that. But I heard him and Sean Payton were flirting today, on TV.
Right. Well, I also think this though, right? Like I think that if you're going to go the draft route, you sign Raheem Mostert, right? 1 year.
Yeah.
And then you do whatever you take to go up and get Jahmyr Gibbs.
See, that's my issue, man. Like I agree with you. Like Kamara in this offense, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's going to give you what? 8 to 1,000 yards on the ground, but he's going to give you 500 to 700 in the air. But I had this conversation with the Dolphin fan. Do you really think he's going to get 83 receptions in Miami? Like how when he was topping out at 700 yards in the air, 757 yards in the air, and then 950 on the ground. I don't see that because of the target share already. So that's why I understand the argument for Dalvin Cook, because Dalvin will get you all that yardage, the majority on the ground, right? And but also I agree with you. Like I look at Eckler and I'm like, man, Kamara's like Eckler on steroids in this offense. If you really think about, like, he could become Tua's best friend. If you really like, I know Tyreek and Waddle are right now, but we could have the three best friends that anyone could have. That that's the finishing touch, is that running back who can catch out of the backfield and make plays at the line of scrimmage out of the backfield, either giving him the ball or just him catching it. Because look at Herbert. Right? Literally, and we're not being haters, or we're telling the fact, more than half of Herbert's yardage comes at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that if you get one of those running backs, you can't stack a box because of Waddle and Hill.
But the money, brother.
If anything, the money's tough. And that's where, I think it's going to, $12, $13 million is what those guys are looking at.
With this deep of a draft class, that's what it kills me. I look at this draft class and I'm like, this draft class is so deep where I'm like, oh,
Agreed.
man. Because I'm like, yo, I'm telling you, Devin A. Chain just gets my chain geared up and rolling. That 4.2 speed in this offense out of this backfield. Are you crazy with me right now?
Right. And for me,
Raheem out of the back. Oh, he's Raheem 2.0.
Right. And for me, like Jahmyr Gibbs is Alvin Kamara. Like he is Alvin Kamara.
Think I know you have him. We won't give away spoilers.
No.
You have him falling somewhere in our trajectory. Okay. Yeah. You have him falling in our trajectory in your mock. Do you really? I've said this every year, and people always push back every year. The past couple of years, I've been consistent that at least two running backs are going to go. At least two running backs are going to go in the first round since 2020, really.
Right.
Since after the Jonathan Taylor stuff, right? And where he was, it was him, Clyde Edwards-Helaire and him, right?
Yeah.
And so,
DeAndre Swift,
and what's happened every year, at least two have gone in the first round. Like, did after James Robinson, did any of us expect them to take Travis Etienne? Yeah, I had a mock there because we heard the rumblings of the fit, but they didn't even really need them. But come draft time, all of a sudden, teams that don't even really need them fall in love with guys or see them as fits. And I don't see Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson getting out of the first. And I'm going to be honest with you. If Devin A. Chain he says he's going to try and break the record. If he gets even sniffs that low 4.2, I don't think he gets to 51. That athleticism and
running back is an interesting position though. And the good news is the draft needs the Dolphins have outside of corners, because corners go fast, right?
Yeah.
But safeties, linebackers, running backs, and interior offensive linemen fall. You know what I mean? Just in general. So that's the good news. I mean, like, look, I have Bijan Robinson as my third overall player, and I have Jahmyr Gibbs as my number 11 overall player in this draft class. So I have a lot of respect, man. Like, I mean, but that's so like that. So what you just said, I think, is a really good point, though. I think there's 20 running backs in this draft, because you're not even talking about like Kendry Miller, Israel Abaconda,
Zach Evans, our boy Zachy, Bush Chabernary.
Yeah, right? You got Deuce Vaughn's a guy who's a nice shifty player. Like, there's guys, so it's like.
We'll talk about the biggest Senior Bowl riser later that everyone's in love with, right?
Right. Well, do you want to spend $12 million on a running back, or do you want to go get Tremaine Edmonds for this defense, or do you want to go get
Lavonte David, please? Stop, bro.
Sure.
110 plus tackles, reliable in coverage, stout against the run, instinctual, and my God, Neal, a legitimate field general at that second level. 2-year stopgap, build around him, and develop the successor behind him. Because I don't know if you read that article Barry put out about Tyndall, Neal, but that's very worrisome that he was being very confused by the playbook and having a real problem grasping it. And now we're switching to a whole new defense.
Right.
So if you got to keep developing him, Lavonte could be that 2-year stopgap, whatever you need. I just think, and Lavonte, no state tax, so you won't have to pay him what other teams are going to have to pay him. Looks like Tampa's not going to afford him, and he's only got to drive up the street, Neal.
Right. I think you're 100% right, and I would say that is something to keep an eye on. I think that's something that could definitely happen, and I think that Jerome Baker's played his final down in Miami now. I think, honestly, keep an eye on the Minnesota Vikings. As I know, we're going to talk about Byron Jones, but keep an eye on them for Jerome Baker, right? Like, he played really well under Brian Flores, and he fits the Vikings defense, better than he fits ours. Because I don't think Flores is going to go there and completely revamp their defense in year one. I think he's going to have to do it because their personnel, right? Like,
well, he has to do the back end because none of their starting boundary or nickel corners are under contract.
Yeah. He's going to have to do that. I mean, there's
like Cameron Dantzler's like CB1 there right now.
Right, and they drafted Lewis Sign at safety, and he's
yeah.
He's
But I'm just talking about their corners. They like Patrick Peterson's free agent. Right. All their nickels starting nickels are free. Both their boundary guys. They like so that's why. Let's talk about this then. Okay, you've segued. Byron Jones for Dalvin Cook, because a lot of people have been talking about Arnie. Because I mean, right, another running back we didn't even name, and it's being named in the chat. Jamal Williams is going to be a free agent, and that's intriguing, right? After how he played this year. But honestly, I'd imagine DeAndre Swift, and you could probably get him for cheap right now because of that coaching staff just does not. I think they're going to re-sign Jamal Williams, and I think they might ship off DeAndre. And DeAndre for cheap in this offense? Are you kidding me right now?
Yeah.
Anyways, that's very intriguing, isn't it? Anyways, let's talk about this. Dalvin Cook, okay, and Byron Jones. They have no corners. They have no starting corners right now. It just CB2s that would need to elevate. Okay, it makes sense. Okay, because if you look at them,
the Vikings are in a rough cap spot.
They are, and
right,
and if you look at it right now, here's the thing: if you designate them post June, right? What we save, our dead money would be 4.75, but we save 13, right? With Byron, if we trade him,
13.6 million. Yep.
Okay, and if for Dalvin Cook, they take on 3.1 million dead cap, but they save 11 million by trading him. So it even it's kind of like basically almost a swap.
Right, and the trade's the best scenario because the cap becomes available right away. You don't have to wait till June 1st. So if you move Byron Jones to, for them, that would be the Dolphins netting get Dalvin Cook in a trade for Byron Jones at about $2 million in cap space.
Well, what do you think about we're going to talk about Byron Jones's market in a second here. What do you think about that? Like in terms of, because this could be a situation, Neal, where if there's any draft picks, they ain't going to be high involved, right?
Right.
What would you think about that in terms of like basically almost swapping out?
Yeah, I mean,
because if you think about it, the money lines up perfectly, Neal.
The Dolphins would get the better player, right? And the Vikings are projected to be 23 million over the cap, but they have a lot of ways. Like they could restructure Cousins, they could restructure Brian O'Neill, but I feel like they are in a sense ready to move on from Dalvin Cook, whether I agree with that or not. Because Justin Jefferson's going to break the bank for sure, and they want to get that done. They want to get that done sooner than later. So I think that would be a great trade for the Dolphins. Like Dalvin Cook would be an unbelievable fit. That home run speed, he's a slasher. He catch the ball.
Works with Nick at Perform.
Works with Nick. Yeah, for sure. I think that would be huge. I do think that Byron Jones could be a potential player for the Vikings. The one thing that scares me is, do the Vikings want to pay that price tag, or do they just want to wait till the Dolphins release them? And the Dolphins will save cap space, but they'll
it's both. Well, that's the other situation too here, Neal. Both teams could be forced to release their guys with the Sharks circling. This way, it guarantees they both get their guys, and the Sharks circling don't get them, and they can just extend them. Right. Because Byron's got no guaranteed money left on his deal, so you can bring him and pay him and structure him however you want.
Well, there's a lot of smoke with these running backs, man, and the Dolphins, and I think a lot of them make sense. I've seen like conspiracy theories that people think Byron Jones. I don't see any scenario where Byron Jones is back on this.
He's not back. He's not. No, he's done.
I would say that it's like a 0% chance that's happening.
It's done.
The coaching staff's not going to deal with that. Vic Fangio ain't going to deal with that. Like they're moving on from him. So I think get something for him because. I was told off the record that I was crazy to think that they would get a 3rd or 4th round pick for him.
Basically, there's no mark. There's not a very good market for, if any, right now for Byron Jones.
Yeah, you're lucky. And look, if you could get a 5th round pick for him, and that's the best you could get, and then you still get his cap off the books before June 1st, I make that trade tomorrow. But if you could go get yourself a top 6 running back in football. Sure, that's a trade that makes a lot of sense because you're pretty much washing out the salary. So,
and this is why. Okay, so if you would have asked me this when McDaniel came in, I would have said this is a crazy scenario. But this is why I'm even talking about this. you got to think he's looking back at what Christian McCaffrey's impact was on the 49ers this season, and they've been drafting and they've been cheap with it and they've been able to get, but they saw the difference that an actual difference maker at that position could make in that offense. Right?
Insane. Yes. I would give up if I could go in retrospect. I wish the Dolphins would have traded their second round pick for Christian McCaffrey in the second.
Yeah.
He's a beast. Unbelievable.
Everyone knows I love this guy, man.
I mean, dude, like that.
When he's healthy, I think he's one of the best players in football. Like, I think he's one of the best football players. Like,
I couldn't agree more. I think he's a beast. And like, that's why when you look at the value of a running back, how the hell did the 49ers get Christian McCaffrey for a second and third, right? Like, how the hell did that happen? And that's why, like, the value of the NFL running back is weird. But something does tell me, like, look, Mostert and Jeff Wilson are not under contract, right? Yeah. I mean, we have no running backs under contract right now. So it would not surprise me in the least. I think, and I've had this notion told to me for people that I trust, the Dolphins are willing to go all in the next 2 years to win. And like, people are always worried about like the cap and draft picks. Like they're not thinking like that because they have flexibility. You're dangerous when you have flexibility. When you're backed in the corner, you're not. They could create. We've done it, the exercise on this show, how much, they can trade future picks or picks this year. And like, there's ways to do it. And Chris Greer is really good at acquiring draft picks. So there's not a move the Dolphins can make in this offseason when I look at the draft and free agency that would surprise me, except if they took a quarterback early. That's the only move that would surprise me. I don't think anything's off limits. Whether, you'll see people like, oh, you guys are fools to think that you have a shot at Tremaine Edmonds. Well, you tell Tremaine Edmonds that, right? Like, if you're a young football player and you see what's going on in Miami and you see the coaching staff they have, the players they have, the excitement around this team. I mean, look, I'm not saying it's the best destination in football, but I'm also not saying it's
very
not.
appealing. It's up there.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's not.
It's up there though with the best. It's up there right now.
Well, look at the cool factor we've had literally since 2020. Like just in the national media, the cool factor. Before that, the Dolphins were like on Bleacher Report with the picture with the fans wearing the brown bags on their heads, and that's how the Dolphins were known. Now, like I think the notion around the Dolphins is that they're the most dangerous young football team in the league, and what Brandon Graham said about that the Eagles thought they would see the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. Like I think a lot of people think that, and that's where and like I think it's great because I think they're going to go all in on Tua, and I'm knocking on wood. God forbid anything happened to them. Like they have the best contingency plan in their state, and I don't want to get into conspiracy theories, but we know who just retired, and we know that if the phone was picked up in an emergency situation, the GOAT would want to come here and play. So I think that this year is going to be an unbelievable year for us. But, I do think we're going to get a big name running back, actually. It's not necessarily what I would do. I think one of the names we've mentioned is going to be the Dolphins starting running back. If I had to pick, I think Josh Jacobs is going to be our starting running back come week 1.
Wow. Bold take. I love it, man.
I think Josh Jacobs wants to be on the Raiders if it works out. Yeah. But I have a feeling, man, that the domino that's going to fall is the Aaron Rodgers domino. And a lot of people think it's between like the Raiders and the Jets, right? Because that's what Twitter's putting out there. First of all, it wouldn't surprise me if Aaron Rodgers says, I'm done. He's made hundreds of millions of dollars. He's a 4-time league MVP. What does he have to prove? And he's a quirky, weird guy. If he does come back, and I look at the landscape of the NFL, I don't want to be on the Raiders. I don't want to be in Pat Mahomes' shadow. Like, if I'm him, the team that I want to go to personally is the Tennessee Titans because I think I can win that division. I think Mike Vrabel's a good coach, and I think they'll build around him, and they have a decent defense, right? Like, I personally, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, want to go to Tennessee. So,
what about the Colts?
Or the Colts, but I think the Colts are plugged in on your boy. I'd be shocked if Will Levis wasn't their pick.
Yeah, I know. So did you hear the Commanders are going forward with my boy Sammy today?
Yeah,
they're going forward with Sam Howell. Yeah, bro, they're coming through. I love it.
You know why? Why? Because Jeff Bezos is going to buy that team the week after the Super Bowl, and the franchise player they're going to build around is Caleb Williams. Watch.
Oh, Yeah.
I
Dude,
really think. Look, I think Chase Young. I saw that
you
article
think they're
today.
going to be? Yeah, you saw that, eh?
I mean, dude, look, you're talking about Chase Young being a potential bust. It's
Yeah,
funny that
love it. Bro, I was telling everyone, if Jaelan Phillips did not have these concussion issues, he's a top 5 pick. He's better than Chase Young. He's in that Chase Young tier. Everyone's sleeping on this kid. And bro, Chase Young about to be a bust, and this guy's about to enter top 5 pass rushers in the NFL. Watch.
Well, here's what's funny, Reason. Think about the quarterback landscape. It looks like Derek Carr and the Saints are going to make this happen. He took his wife on the trip.
Like, doesn't that shock you? First of all, what's that team going to look like after they move the money around?
Dude, they're. So I looked at their cap situation because what I've done, and I think everyone, this is a good exercise for anyone to do. I've gone over the cap. I've gone to every team site and I put down their cap number where they are, cap space and over. And then what I've done is I hit the drop down and I go to restructure. And I pick 5 contracts you can restructure, and then I do release. And I try to see who has flexibility. There's not a team in football that has worse flexibility than the Saints. I think there's $70 million over the cap, but they also already did all the restructuring. So there's not a lot they can do to create space. They're going to have to lose good players. Like, I would say they have to lose 2 good players to get in the right scenario.
Can I get Eric McCoy or Ryan Ramchuk, please? One of the two?
You know who I'd want, Reason? Marshawn Lattimore. If he's available.
Yeah, I want Ryan Ramchuk, bro.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Bro, imagine our bookends are Taron Armstead and Ryan Ramchuk. Let's go. Those are the best 2 Saints linemen those are like 2 of their greatest tackles ever.
Right. Well, that's where, so the landscape of quarterbacks, like if Aaron Rodgers doesn't choose the Jets, right? Like, I mean, what a failed offseason again. Who are they? Is it going to be Jimmy G? Like
in New York?
Yeah, like who is it going to be?
I love it. Salah's going to be out of a job, and like
I was in a Twitter space and they told me I was a fool because Aaron Rodgers is going to go to the Jets and they were going to win the division. I mean, like it's nuts.
Let me ask you this, because I know I've been high on this kid, and I got one of my moderators is high on him too. Keely Ringo.
I love him.
Aren't you like? We were talking about this guy being a top 10 pick in his drop now. How far do you see him dropping? How far you got him dropping in your mock?
Well, I have him falling all the way to Minnesota in the first round. But again, that's predictive. That's not where I have him. Like I am a Keely. I have him as the number 1 corner in this draft.
Yes, he's a I can't believe the hate, bro. What's happening right now on Keely, dude? Like, is he at that point where we all knew what he was at the beginning of the season, and now we've gone into you see this all the time every year with prospects. Are they in the overanalyzation stage where now they're just like overly nitpicking and dropping him because of that? Like,
yeah, I'm looking right now. He's my number 6 overall player, so I'm high on him. I think the ascension of Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez is hurting his draft stock.
I love Witherspoon out of Illinois, but like, let's be serious here.
Yeah, well, look, man. See, that's where I am as a Dolphins fan. Like, look, if one of those corners,
Keely falls to me at 51, bro, dude, roadrunner to that podium.
Say he falls to the end of round 1, right?
Move up.
We'll pick up the phone and say, hey, next year's number 1. We'll take Keely Ringo.
Brother, if you can replace Byron with that quality of a rookie opposite of X,
right. I mean, so like, yeah, so it's weird. It's that weird time of the draft though, where it's overanalyzation season. You know, everyone's ignoring the tape, and now they're looking at the underwear Olympics, and they're trying to figure out what happens. And we see this every year. But the good news is, I really think at pick 51, there's going to be a stud that falls to us. Whether it's Jack Campbell, whether it's Eli Ricks from Alabama at corner, Deontay Banks corner from Maryland.
Our boy Darnell ain't falling now. It's over.
Yeah, I know we're going to talk about Cedarville standouts, but no, we'll
talk about that in a second. I want to get your thoughts on Butch Barry. We haven't got your thoughts on Butch Barry, and I know you heard all the rumors. Okay, here's the thing. Okay, I laid it out on the show yesterday, Neal, when I did the finish line live here up inside the NFL. And what? Okay, so I laid out all the rumors that were out there from the Denver media. Okay, about players with standing ovations, all that stuff. But then I also dropped the analytics about top 10 in pass rush win rate. Sorry, top 10 in pass block win rate. Top 10 in run block win rate. You know, top 10 in blown block penalty rate. You know what I mean? Like, all the analytics and the metrics minus PFF, some PFF grades, which they're only moved by a few spots, and we all know what PFF grades really are and what, you know what I mean?
Right.
I more look at PFF for the analytics side of it, not for their grades, like with
Yeah, me
all
either.
their analytic numbers and stuff. So by all metrics that matter, that offensive line improved, and they didn't even have the personnel in place to make that switch to wide zone. Okay. Like, what are your whole thoughts on this situation? Sure, if the guy's leaving notes in the locker room, that's not good. But do you really think McDaniel's going to let that fly when you got a guy who's as personable and as face-to-face as he is? And he worked with him before. Don't you trust McDaniel not only knows him, but I think, Neal, it's one of those situations where, just like with Fangio, you know, when we find out that Frank Smith and McDaniel were having to pick up a lot of the slack for the offensive line, they want to wipe their hands with it. They want to leave it with someone they know needs to be done, how it needs to be executed, and they can oversee everything and not having to over focus on one area. So I don't know, man. The metrics say this is a good move. The Denver media says this guy is toxic.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest. I know more about biometric pressure than I know about Butch Barry. Like I don't know much about it. But what I'll say is the Broncos side, like, look, when anyone leaves any organization, people shovel dirt on them, right? The same Broncos media were taking victory laps and said they were Super Bowl contenders when they had Russell Wilson. You know, they said that Vic Fangio was interviewing for their DC position. You know, they're taking victory laps because their team traded a first-round pick for a coach that's as mid as it gets in Sean Payton, right? They traded their best defensive player last year. Like, I honestly don't give a crap what anyone in Denver's saying. Like, I really don't. Look, it's a guy I don't know. I thought Mike Munchkin could be the name, but at the end of the day, like, I'm going to trust Mike McDaniel, who's come here and hired Darrell Bevell. He convinced Vic Fangio to come here. He brought
Neal here. Denver moved off Mike Munchak for Butch Barry because they wanted to go from a power gap to a wide zone.
Right. Well, look, and the bar's low with Applebaum, like, right, whether we like them or not, and the leash is short. Like, if he doesn't pan out well, it wouldn't surprise me if in week 7 you see Mike McDaniel be like, "You're out, bro." Frank Smith will coach the line and the offense. Like we've seen it happen already. So, like, I think it's such an overreaction. Like, here's the reality, right?
Yep.
99% of Dolphins Twitter never heard of Butch Barry before that happened, and I'm in that 99%. I didn't know who he was.
As am I.
Like, I'm not going to pretend I know something I don't.
As am I. Yep.
So it's like, I'd be a fool to sit here and be upset or happy about the move. But I will say this. Overall, I really, truly believe in the Dolphins coach staff. I think it's a lot different than what Brian Flores had because he just had a litany of bad coaches. I think the coaches in this locker room can pick up the slack if someone's not as good as they're supposed to be. So at the end of the day, it's a lackluster hire. Who knows? Like, the first thing I said is, hey, maybe we'll go get Dalton Risner to be our left guard then. That's the first thing I thought of.
Then you saw the reports, and it doesn't sound like it because he's probably in the standing ovation by all Denver accounts.
Yeah, right. So, like, I have no idea how it's going to pan out. But with that said, I'm not worried about it at all. Like, when you rank the hierarchy of coaches, the offensive line coach is probably as at the bottom of the floor that it gets. So it is what it is. I mean, like, it'd been cool to get a big name with a lot of experience, but not everyone's a Hudson Hawk or whatever the guy was that was the best offensive line coach. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. I know that he coached at the Miami Hurricanes, so maybe some of the Miami faithful did know more about him than I did, which is great.
Yeah.
I've heard he'll get in your face. You know what? Maybe some of those young guys need a little of that tough love because you know what? Austin Jackson still, in NFL years, a baby. Maybe he needs to get a little tougher. Maybe he needs to fight through some injuries and be out on that field. Liam Eichenberg, right? He had a rough injury. I'm not going to say he didn't, but maybe he needs to find out how to get that mean streak, how he needs to finish blocks, how he has to drive defenders, how he can't be sitting there like a turnstile and looking back and watching Tua get hit. Maybe these offensive linemen need to get smacked in the face because honestly, I'm tired of Liam Eichenberg and Austin Jackson. And I'm not okay with both of them coming back next year. I don't think you are. And it's like, at the end of the day,
no,
we need to add one solid player to this offensive line, whether it's the draft or free agency. I'm okay with having one dud, but having 2 duds isn't okay to me. You know what I mean?
Agree. Yeah, because that's almost 50% of your line. That's 40%. I'd like to see
Austin Jackson at left guard. I'd like to see Austin Jackson at left guard.
And get a right tackle.
Yeah, I'd like to see a four-way, 4-corner match. Robert Jones, Lester Cotton, Austin Jackson, Liam Eichenberg. Let the best man win. Go get me a veteran right tackle. We'll win. We'll win that way.
I agree because Austin Jackson's athleticism and everything is intriguing between Connor but you also got to we got to get that backup plan, that succession plan in place for center because we're pricing Connor out of here. He's a top 10 run blocking left guard, and now we're turning him into one of the more noticeable centers in the NFL. Even though
they should extend him now, Reason they should, because they would save cap room for this year probably. I would get Connor Williams locked up now. 4-year deal, 4 years. 36, 4 years, $40 million, $9-10 million a year.
I agree.
Go get it done. Why would you not at this point? Because I think that even if worst case you wanted to kick him back to left guard, which I think still is maybe one of the best moves. It's not going to happen, but I think him at left guard and get a true center would be the way to go. But look, Connor Williams has shown me enough to stay. Now the snaps pissed me off, and it hurt us one time last year, and it will hurt us again in the future. But he's a really good player. He's still young, and honestly, he had his best year of football here in Miami. So, but I think him next to Terron Armstead would be what would be best. But we'll see what happens.
So Raheem Mostert, bro, he said some interesting things, and
it sounds like he's coming back, right? Like it sounds like he's coming back.
It does sound like he's coming back. Anyways, this is what he said on Mad Dog. I want to show everyone what he said. Just because they might not have all seen it. So this is what he said on Mad Dog, and he believes in Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa to lead Miami here. So
it's a big deal. I mean, it's huge, especially in your division. I came from a division in NFC West. Everybody is good in NFC West. You got Seattle, who's always up prominent, and then you had LA, who's been dominant for some years now, and San Fran. We're doing our thing, and in Arizona too. Up and downs too. So. Going over into the AFC and being in that division, man, and seeing the abilities that, we had, it was definitely a lot more positive than I would say negative.
I love that, and I love the reference to the Bills, and that was a big deal when you guys beat them. Even in the quote-unquote close losses, and I feel comfortable saying that now after hearing your answer, I thought there were positives in terms of signs for the future. I wouldn't say that to you in moment because I don't necessarily believe in good losses, but in terms of building blocks for the future, that Saturday night game in the snow, I thought that was a big deal. And heck, you're playing with your third quarterback in Buffalo, wild card round of the postseason. I mean, there are a lot of positives just on the matchup against Buffalo.
Yeah, it was a lot of positives, and I would say, when you look at ball in the aspect of, we try to take over a team, we try to be a dominant force. When we went into that Buffalo game, in the playoffs, we already knew that, our backs were against the wall, but we were still able to get close to, having the job done. Unfortunately, we weren't able to move on to the next round because, we had a lot of injuries and everything like that. But in the grand scheme of things, like I said, it was definitely a lot of positives for the team. And moving forward, we know what we got to do.
So you say you know what you have to do.
He's coming back, Neal.
Well, we got to tighten up our offense a little bit more. We got to make, better calls in the offense. I know that Mikey's going to get the job done. He's a brilliant-minded guy.
I love him.
Everybody does.
I love him. And you were with him in San Francisco, and he brought you over. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great, and it was. What makes Mike McDaniel so great?
I think the thing that's been not, portrayed enough is his authenticity and his brilliance.
Love that.
The guy knows football in and out like the back of his hand. He understands the game and he knows what he has to do. Now, you can go back and say, the first thing that, when we had these losses, when it was tight ropes and we lost by 3 here, 2 here, or even a touchdown, he'll go back and be like, I made the messed up call. I made a call that wasn't suitable for the offense, and he'll take that blame, which is awesome because, as a head coach, you don't hear too many coaches come out and be like, I made the bad call. It was my part. Like, I got to do a better job. And he'll confront us and tell us that in the locker room at the moment if we lost the game. And he'll be like, hey, look, I'll do a better job.
I've never heard that. Seriously. So how does that resonate in such a positive way with the players?
So with the players, everybody wants to take the blame. You know, as a player, you're like, like me personally, I'm like, okay, it was 3rd and 1. I couldn't convert. Now it's 4th and 2. You know, I lost a yard. How can I do a better job of breaking a tackle to get the first down in order to seal the game? With him, it's like, you know, he says, okay, well, I missed, you know, I told Tua to look at this read, but instead he threw it to this guy, which ultimately didn't, you know, work in our favor, and that's what happened in the loss. And he'll take accountability for himself, which is very inspirational as a player, because you're like, okay, well, if he could take the load off of himself and take the load off of us, then, you know, we could all work together, and it just gives you more confidence, especially on the offense.
I love that. Now, you referenced Tua, and look, I'm a Tua fan. I'm a Tua believer. I thought he played brilliantly when he was out there. You know, obviously you're dealing with the head and concussions. I mean, that's as difficult as it gets. So what are you looking for? What did you see from Tua on the field this year? And is he your guy for the Miami Dolphins moving forward? So
I will say he is definitely our guy, you know, moving forward. But he has to take care of himself first and foremost. I'm all about health. You know, that's how I've always been. I believe that, you know, in order to be successful, you have to have, you know, your health. And unfortunately, I was, you know, banged up here and there a couple times in my career, and I understand that, you know, health is a major aspect in a player's game. So. But moving forward, I think that Tua has done an unbelievable job, you know, especially with – now, I wasn't with the Dolphins prior to, so sure. I can't really comment on, you know, what was happening inside the building, but I can say that, you know, he did have a lot of a negative connotation to him just because of the type of game that he was putting out there, you know. But this year, he definitely stepped up and he did his thing, and it's definitely going to be a bright future for him. So he's the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins. Again, we're going to assume health for the sake of this conversation. Mm-hmm. You're riding with Tua Tagovailoa for right
next
now
year.
At the moment. Yes, correct.
So first of all, I want to shout out to Griffin Gaming for becoming a member and joining the Pro Bowl level. Appreciate you, Griffin Gaming. On top of that, I want to shout out Brian. He also became a member of the channel. Appreciate you, Brian, and welcome. He can't join the Pro Bowl level. And then with the donation here, shout out to Russell with the $2 donation. He said, Lavonte David, Jesse Bates, Bradbury, free agent draft, Dewan. In free agency, draft Juan Jones and Zach Evans. That's what he said. So what are your thoughts on Raheem Mostert there, Neal? Because it sure seems like he was speaking in the sense of, it sure sounds like he's coming back.
Right. And that's my guy, Adam Shine, interviewing him. I was on the Shine show last week. I called in and we talked Vic Fangio. So I love Adam Shine, listen to him every day. But Mostert, I mean, look, he's coming back. And I think you're seeing with this Dolphins team, you know, what they want to do is they want to weed out the people that are hurting them, you know, not doing their jobs, but they want continuity everywhere else. Like they want to build this the right way. So I think Mostert will be back regardless of who we get. Like, say my scenario where we get Josh Jacobs comes to fruition. I still think, 1 year, $3 million deal to keep Raheem Mostert is good money spent. You need two backs in this league. So I think he's coming back. I think, he's a Tua guy, and, that's a veteran way of saying, hey, kid, we love you. You're our guy. Don't take hits. Don't fall on your head. Like, let's make sure you're there. We beat Buffalo with you. Those are the things I'm hearing there. And what I'm hearing is this team's ready. Everyone, Adam Shine, that guy loves the Dolphins. He loves Vic Fangio. The only negative thing he'll say is, Tua's great, but you got to stay healthy, right? Like, and we all think the same way. But I think Raheem Mostert, man, what a well-spoken, veteran presence. Great. I mean, if he didn't miss games this year, he probably hit 1,000 yards here, down the stretch, some of those angry runs against Buffalo. I mean, he played great. And I think he's a piece. And I think he's a piece that you want back. You're not going to break the bank for him. So, let's get him back here. Let's keep the continuity going. I love the Mike McDaniel quotes. I love that stuff. That's what you want to hear. What I hear is this franchise that has had the worst culture in the entire NFL for a decade plus, now has a great culture. That is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on that. That's why Tyreek Hill says, I want to come to Miami. Sure, money, state taxes. We talk about that stuff with everybody. But, some of these guys still are competitors, and they don't want to just go because of money, right? Like, they want to win. And I think Mike McDaniel's created a culture where, like, you want to be on this ship because we're going somewhere. And when we hit that destination, it's going to be the most fun you've had in your career. And cool, you don't pay state tax and you make a lot of money, right? Like, and you have great coaches. You have a fan base that, look, the Dolphins have a pretty fair weather fan base, but I think I've seen in the last 3 years that stuff that loyalty gets strengthened. I see more passionate fans than I have ever seen around this team. And I think I've said this many times, I think the next 3 to 5 years as a Miami Dolphins fan is going to be the most fun that I'll have as a fan in the post-Marino era. I think this season, the expectations changed, right, when we got to a certain point. And, we were on podcasts and I said this verbatim. I thought they were a legit Super Bowl. It kind of sucked when Tua got hurt because then we just wanted to crawl into the playoffs, right? The reality of it is if that never happens, who knows what happens? Because I think we could beat Buffalo, and I don't know. I think that whether it was Kansas City, Cincinnati, I'm done doubting the Miami Dolphins, personally. I think they could beat anyone on any given day. I think they'll have bad days. They'll have bad games. Tua will throw interceptions. Waddle and Hill will drop balls. Robert Hunt will get false start penalties. Like, those things will happen. But I think when they play their A game, if they play like they did in that playoff game with Buffalo and they have Tua Tagovailoa, they will host the Lombardi in the next 3 years. That's my honest belief. And I've never thought that in the Miami Dolphins fan since 1999 when Marino retired in a rainy day in Miami when they beat the Ravens 19-6. Like, that's the last time, I remember sitting there like, how did Marino never win a ring? And then I had Jay Fiedler. And as much as I got excited every year because of that defense with Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor, Madison, Surtain, Brock Marion, Bowens.
And that's what I told people. You want to talk about a quarterback that actually held us back from a championship? Talk about Jay Fiedler. If people actually watched back then, that's why I think a lot of people weren't fans. Well, if you watched Marino like the way we did, and then you watched the Fiedler area, even as in our teens, what would we always say to ourselves? Man, if Marino if we just had Marino for a few more years, like I would always say to myself, man, if Marino overlapped the Ricky era, we would have had a Super Bowl.
Yeah, the year when they were rumored to get Barry Sanders, I don't know if a lot of people remember.
Yeah, that was the last. That
was the year where I was like, "Holy crap! If we get this dude, it's going to happen." But we lift on. We've talked about this, man, and that's why it's like appreciate what you have. Like for those worried about,
it's not like we whiffed. It's the Lions basically said the Lions gave him the right to go find a trade partner. He found the trade partner with us, and then the Lions basically said, "Okay, we're not trading you. Like you're either coming to play for us or you retire," and he retired.
Yeah, I was just saying, like with the Culpepper whiff, I appreciate what you have.
That was a big one.
Tua Tagovailoa is literally the best quarterback we've had since Dan Marino. I know Chad Pennington had a great 2018 or 2008. His 2008 was not better than Tua's season this season. It wasn't.
Agreed.
It wasn't. I think, and I love.
He only threw 19 touchdowns that year.
Yeah, and Tannehill's year when he was 26-10, then everyone was like, "Oh my God, he's the guy!" And he tore.
And he had the Wildcat. He had the biggest gimmick ever. Was the Wildcat, right? Like that's the whole reason we won the division. It wasn't Chad Pennington. I could talk about the year all the time. It gets me my blood boiling because I don't think Ronnie Brown gets enough credit.
Well, I told you this off air before, I think, or maybe I didn't. But if you live in Baltimore, there's a couple bars you can run into the Ravens. I used to see Ray Rice out, Ed Reed out, Michael McCrary, Jonathan Ogden, Ray Lewis. And one time Ed Reed had told me, he's like, we knew that all I had to do was is play center field and I would pick off passes because Pennington could throw it behind me. And they knew the whole season. Now think about the Ravens game this year, right? And obviously the Ravens didn't have Ed Reed back there, but they did have Marcus Williams, who's probably a top 5 safety in football.
Yeah.
And they had Marlon Humphreys and they had Marcus Peters and Kyle Hamilton. Well, they couldn't have done that because Tua was throwing 50-yard touchdowns all over them, right? I'm just saying, appreciate what you have. I think this year that the Tua had was better than any year we've seen in the post-Marino era. Just bottom line.
I agree. No, I agree. He did things as a passer Marino never did, right? Like he
Right.
literally in 2-game and 3-game streaks, in that 4-game winning streak, he literally did things Marino never did as a passer in the aqua and orange. So let's talk about the Senior Bowl, man, because we talk about Darnell Wright. I think Darnell Wright, he solidified it. That guy might be the top
Round
tackle
one.
on some boards.
He's going round one now.
Yeah. But like some of the risers, like Tyjae Spears was a huge riser. I know everyone was falling in love with DeJuan Jones. Even Evan Hall as a running back out of Northwestern had a pretty big rise this week. Cody Mauch from North Dakota, everyone was loving on him too, right?
Right. Darius Rush, the cornerback from South Carolina, was getting a lot of love, a lot of length, a lot of fluidity there. I mean, look, man, I love the Senior Bowl.
Julius Brent, right? Julius Brent.
I'm a Julius Brent guy. I like him too. But like, the DeJuan Jones thing, right? Like, I knew that was coming. I said he was a more athletic Orlando Brown Jr. That's what I kind of saw when I saw him on tape. I knew I have him as my 16th overall prospect. I would love for the Dolphins to be able to get him or Darnell Wright and plug him for the next decade. It's not going to happen at this point. So it is what it is. But Tyjae Spears was a guy,
he's very interesting in this offense, don't you think?
Look, I'm a nerd, man. My family goes to bed on Friday nights, and I drink a lot of whiskey and watch college football till 1 o'clock in the morning. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of what I do. And Tyjae Spears, I mean, his burst, his shiftiness, his ability to move and find the hole, his contact balance. I mean, he's got a lot of really good things. And it's one of those things, man, I really hope that there's some way the Dolphins can add a late day 2 pick. Whether it's if they do get Byron Jones or Baker, I don't know how you move back in the second round. Yeah. But because I truly think that this is one of the most unique draft classes we've seen in a long time. I think there's 3 blue chip guys on my board, and it's Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, and Bijan Robinson. I think the quality of player you see from pick 10 to pick 50, there's not much of a drop off. I don't think cornerback 1 is light years better than quarterback 11. I don't think, you know what I mean? Running back 5 is that much better than running back 17.
Yeah, I love my top 15 running backs. I'm happy with any one of them, to be honest with you.
Right. So, and the linebacker class is what I really got. I mean, Ivan Pace, I think he shows some really good shiftiness and movement at the Senior Bowl. The tight ends, I think, looked a little bit better than I anticipated.
Well, I wanted to stop because a lot of people are like, I know everyone, the hype was on Michael Mayer, obviously. And then I saw people were hyping up Darnell Washington and Durham. But you mentioned him, and I also like this guy too, Luke Musgrave out of Oregon State. Yes. I mean, 6'5", 255, fluidity, like he moves so well, such good fluidity in his movements. He's a big boy who can make big boy plays. I mean, this guy has a very, very high ceiling, and I've even seen some mocks where he goes in the first round and
above
he
Mayer.
Really, he's really helped his stock in the Senior Bowl. I mean, that's the, I know everyone's fond of Darnell, but Luke Musgrave's the one you should be, elevating over.
If he's there at pick 51, the Dolphins have a serious conversation. I think he's that type of player. Dalton Kincaid's going to get a lot of love. You're going to see 3 or 4 tight ends probably go in the first 2 rounds. Yeah. I don't see any of the negatives.
Him and Kincaid are the best movers, I think, at the position.
Right.
I think they're the best movers.
And I think Mayer's the more all-around player. I actually don't see a lot of the negatives that I've seen people write about Mayer. And look, everyone, the beauty of the draft.
Him. I think he's
the beauty of the draft is that everyone has their own, analysis. They view it from their lens. And I think the best part about the community is learning other people's approach and being authentic and, not stealing other people's work, right? Right. But I'll say this, like, Luke Musgrave's a guy that's going to get a lot of momentum, and I'd rather him be on our team than go to a team that we play. You know what I mean? Like, I'd hate to see him go to the Chargers, for example, and be with Herbert. You know what I mean? So, but the reason what gets me excited, the Dolphins are a good player at 51. That's what gets me excited. I'm confident the Dolphins are going to get a good player. The guy that I really, really want there, though, it's a guy I know you love. You just put him. The perfect fit is Jack Campbell. That is the perfect pick for the Miami Dolphins. I think that is the pick, and I double dip. I still go to try to get Tremaine Edmonds, and I
or I get Lavonte David. Yeah, I agree 110%, bro. 100. Right. That's what I said. Yep, 110%, bro.
Dude, look what the Buffalo Bills did with Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds. Their whole defense transformed when you have two guys. Right now, we have 0 guys. And look, I said I think Jerome Baker's done. I think he's done in Miami because they're going to move him for cap money. I think Channing Tindall's going to be on a learning curve and be a depth player for this year, and hopefully he can find his way to contribute a little bit. But, like, look, go get this defense. Fangio's defense needs 2 linebackers. You get Jack Campbell and you get Tremaine Edmonds, or you go get a Lavonte David, right?
Even your boy T.J. Edwards because of his familiarity, right?
Go get those. Bobby Okereke or Okereke, however you say that.
Bobby Okereke,
Go get one of those guys. Get 2 of those guys. Yeah. And you have just fixed your linebacker core. And if you get Tremaine Edmonds, who's 24 years old, you're good for like 8 years. Like I think that's going to be the strength of this offseason is we can list the needs. I think the Dolphins need a corner. They need linebackers. They need a lot, right? Like, even though they have a lot, everyone needs a lot. The linebacker position is the one that I think needs the complete overhaul. I think
it does. It needs to be rebuilt.
You watch those games, and look, I think Landon Roberts has the.
If you look at it, this is how you look at it. The secondary needs to be retooled, and the second level needs to be rebuilt. That's literally how you look at that defense. Watch Guru. He says, "Haven't been on the channel in a while, but I'm always a part of the Fins fam. Who should we target on the offensive line front?" I mean, in free agency, we've talked about this. I mean, if you're going to go right tackle, McGlinchey, Caleb McGarry's out there. Juwan Taylor. You love Juwan Taylor's out there. Then the draft, we love Darnell Wright. You're going to go later. A guy like Tyler Steen can move back to right tackle. He played left tackle and right tackle at Bama. Then there's also, I know a lot of people in this fan base are falling in love with McClendon, the right tackle out of Georgia.
Right. Yeah, no, I think he's a player that is a guy that you got to develop. But see, I have a question for you. Do you think there's any long-term future of Robert Hunt at right tackle?
I like him at right guard, man.
Yeah,
I
was just saying that.
The problem is it's been a rotating door next to him. That's a problem.
Well, here's what I was thinking. Just thinking out loud here because I saw his name come up in the chat, and God, man, some of these guys' names, man, and I just. The Eagles right guard, Isaac Siamalu. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
You could get that guy as your right guard next to Robert Hunt with Connor Williams as your center, Armstead at your left tackle, and whatever Hammond wins the 4-corner dance for their left guard. I mean, that's a good line. I think Robert Hunt played really, really well against Buffalo when he had to. Look, I'm not opposed to getting him. The thing about those top right tackles are McGlinchey, McGarry, Juwan Taylor, they're going to cost $15 million a year.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where and my offseason approach is one thing.
See, I'd move up for Darnell Wright. I'd do what we didn't do for Tristan Wirfs. I'd move up for a player like that.
Sure. Because here's the thing is, I'd rather walk away with the draft with one bona fide high-level starter than 3 mid guys. I would.
I agree.
I just would. And look, there's no certainty that Jack Campbell is going to be there at 51. No certainty.
Well, in my first mock that I did on this channel, he wasn't. I took Owen Popo, and I think that kid has a really high ceiling too.
Yeah, the Auburn kid. Yeah,
I think he has a real high ceiling.
I think you go sign on offense, one offensive lineman in free agency. I think you sign one linebacker.
At least. Yeah.
And then you either decide, am I going to get a corner or am I going to get a running back? I think if you get those 3 guys, you go into the draft pretty dangerous. Look, you can't have a roster with 22 starters that are all pros. It just doesn't work like that. You're going to have a guy that's, an average player or worse. It just happens. But go get me a starting right tackle, get me a starting linebacker, and get me Josh Jacobs. I did the math. That's going to cost about $38 to $39 million in cap space, conservatively. You can make it happen. Go do it.
Yeah.
And then you use the post-June money if you can't find a trade partner for Byron Jones to sign your draft class.
Yeah. 420 in the room. Smash that like button. Smoke him if you got him.
Man, I'm refreshing. I haven't seen.
I know, bro. We're rolling out here, man. And it started at 8:00, right?
Yeah, I think the announcement started at 9.
What are your thoughts on the Super Bowl this weekend? Who do you got?
Man, I don't know who I really want to win. You know what? I'll be honest. Because of someone I'm not a big fan of in the Dolphins community, I want the Chiefs to win. Like, I'll just being honest. I want the Chiefs to win. I think Mahomes is brilliant. I think he deserves another ring. I think he willed his team on a bad ankle against a Bengals team. It wouldn't shock me if the Eagles beat them, though, because I think the Eagles can bully them with that offensive line is insane. That defensive front.
The rumors are
insane.
starting. I see a tweet here. Sources: Chuck Howley, Ken Riley, Don Coryell, Joe Klecko, Rondé Barber, Darrell Revis, Joe Thomas, Zach Thomas, and DeMarcus Ware, Hall of Fame class 2023. So they're already starting.
Are you? Is that from a viable source?
It's from a Bills person.
Huh. Well, I'll tell you this,
but
man.
not a viable source. So I'm just saying that's why I said it's all starting. That's why I'm saying it's all starting.
I feel sick right now. My stomach is in my throat. I am nervous as hell because I like Zach Thomas is my 5 favorite football players of all time. Marino's 1, Zach's 2, Jason's 3, Ricky's 4, and then Sammy shut down Madison's my 5, and then you're looking at my Tua and my current guys. Like that's I love Zach Thomas, man, and I think Brian Urlacher is spot on when he kind of talks about how insane it is that Zach is. I'm already ready to like pretty much go on a tyrant against the NFL because I saw Roger Goodell say this week that the officiating is as good as it's ever been. Man,
but he has to, right?
But that guy makes $40 million a year to sit up there and lie to everybody. It is awful. Like the officiating in the NFL makes me not like it. I used to be able to watch like the Browns play the Jaguars on a Thursday night. I don't watch Thursday night football anymore. I'd rather watch the Capitals play and not have to, when you're on Amazon Prime, you can't flick the channel, right? You can't go back and forth. Like I hate the whole presentation. I hate the streaming of it. Like I just don't like it. And I think the officiating has ruined it for me. I hope they fix it. Like I'm a believer that I played receiver and I used to get crushed over the middle. And man, I love that kind of pain. That's what I loved about football, was getting lit up by someone over the middle. And then when I played safety, I loved the hitting people. I mean, I just think that that's a lost art. And look, player safety, I don't want to crap on player safety. Of course, you want these guys to be healthy. You don't want to see anyone hurt. The Damar Hamlin thing, I think you would agree with me. The reason one of the worst things I've ever seen in my life as a football fan. And it's, you want them to be safe, but you can't make it. Like I thought Trent Dilfer, I don't know if you watched the Bullies of Baltimore documentary that they did.
I haven't seen that.
He pretty much said that no quarterback he's like, I love Tom Brady, I love Aaron Rodgers, but nobody who's a current quarterback impresses me. Practically saying, yeah, they put up gaudy stats because the rules let them, right? Like,
yeah,
what Marino did, what Montana did, what Elway did, what those guys did was way more impressive because at the end of the day, the rules, I mean, like they would get crushed. There wasn't as many rough in the passer calls. Deion Sanders could literally jump on someone's back and, get a piggyback ride for 15 yards and they wouldn't throw a flag, So, but it is what it is, man. It's still the best game in the world. And it's tough, but I think, man, my thumb hurts because I keep hitting refresh, but man, I hope we all as Dolphin fans get that exhale and Zach gets in. And then my next agenda is going to be making sure our boy Richmond gets in because, like, you were making some awesome points before the show. But, that's an all-decade left tackle. You could argue he's a top 5, 10 left tackle in the history of football. He is a man's man. I mean, when he came in 1990, right, everything got better for Dan Reed on that blind side, man. And him and Keith Sims, that tandem on that left side of that line was so fun to watch, man. And that honestly was the foundation of me loving watching offensive line play. I loved watching Richmond Webb and Keith Sims. And, unfortunately, we haven't had a lot of guys like that in a long, long time. But that's what I like about Taron Armstead. But, yeah, man, no, it's fun. I mean, look, dude, we are a month away from NFL free agency. And we are very close to the franchise tag deadline. You're going to see a lot of news. I put out a top 125 free agent big board. 10 of those guys are going to get franchise tagged. And it's not always great players. You're going to see Lamar Jackson probably get tagged. I have a feeling that Orlando Brown Jr. is probably going to get tagged by Kansas City. I mean, you're going to see people dry up pretty fast. And it's going to be interesting. I think the Dolphins are always good for one splash to start it all off, and I don't know who it's going to be yet, but man, I'm excited about that. Like, the Dolphins, like they do it right. Like Chris Greer, he makes some bad picks, he makes great picks, he makes some good trades, but man, he's always ready to make the splash, and I love it, man. I love that about our team. Like, we don't put a price tag on. Yeah, we're fearless when it comes to being great, and that's what it takes.
Okay, yeah, man. Like, so let me just gut feeling before we get out of here. Does Zach get in tonight?
Man, I'm so used to the NFL.
I think he does. I'm
so used to the NFL screwing us, but I'm going to be positive, and I'm going to say Zach Thomas is going to be a Hall of Famer in the next half an hour, and then I'll be drinking my bottle of Jefferson Ocean, and I might put that damn whole thing down, and I'll see if I can make it to work tomorrow. But I'm ready to drink some whiskey in celebration of, man, the best linebacker, I think, in Dolphins history, one of my freaking favorite football players of all time, old Zach Thomas, man. I got his Pro Bowl jersey and his orange and aqua jerseys ready to rock and roll. I have some business meetings tomorrow, but I will go to a business meeting in a Zach Thomas jersey. And if I don't win that account, it's all right, man. Like, don't knock my Zach Thomas jersey. I got pride. You know what I mean? So I'm an idiot, man. I still walk around in tiger stripe Zubaz pants in public. Like, they know me in this town, man. I'm that Dolphins fan that still wears that starter jacket with blood on it from when I got in a fist fight back at MetLife. Like, I got it all on, man. So, I love this team, and I think it's time one of our guys gets his due, man. You think so? You feel good too?
Yeah, I think he gets in.
Yeah.
I think they've noticed the Hufflepuffle. I mean, people seem to forget. You remember when he was when Don Shula mentioned him in his acceptance speech? When he mentioned Richmond Webb in his acceptance speech, and it hasn't even changed its trajectory. But I think the fans on Twitter and everyone, I think they have social media has allowed us to change their trajectory a little bit with Zach. So
How about Kevin Mawai, dude? When Kevin Mawai was on stage saying it, and then Peyton Manning was on stage saying it, like, I mean, those are guys like Kevin Mawai, man. Like, he was a beast of a center, man. I had nothing but respect for that guy. And, Peyton Manning, I mean, that guy has as big of a voice in this industry as anyone. When they're on stage getting their acceptance and they're clamoring for Zach Thomas, that tells you everything you need to know about him being in the Hall.
All right, guys, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it winds out. As always, a pleasure, Neal. We'll let you get your paper bag so you can hyperventilate into it before the announcement is made. But, guys, we'll see you all back here next week when we dive fin too deep. Until next time, as always, fins up.